dwarves. They're rallying.
They're rallying to their king.
Hello and welcome to the table, Warhammer friends. Grab your favorite drink, kick back and relax because we have a very special campaign overview video showcasing Belegar Ironhammer and Clan Angrund in a new type of campaign from their Immortal Empires start position. This campaign is the Old World mod by the legendary Chaos Robbie, which essentially expands the entire Warhammer 1 map to a grand scale size and really just changes up a lot of factions with their strategies, playstyles, and overall mechanics of the game too. Now, before we get into the fine nitty-gritty details of Belegar's campaign, for any new viewer who may have stumbled across this channel, the gist of what I do here is showcasing narrative-driven Total War campaigns and also mainly using modded factions, but also vanilla factions in a new light as well, with some mods to really enhance them for roleplay wise or in terms of actual gameplay and mechanics too. So if you all are fans of talking shop about Warhammer lore or also different types of narrative-driven campaigns, whether they're for modded factions or a new take on your favorite vanilla faction, I'd love to have you consider hitting that like, subscribe, and bell icon notifications, and most importantly, commenting below what your personal favorite faction is, or a modded faction that you would personally love to see with their story or their unique units too. I genuinely want to hear what all of you would like to see on this channel, and also I do want to do more campaign requests just to provide more of a community feel. Now, speaking of narrative-driven Total War campaigns, I have several videos showcasing the early stage turns of Belegar's campaign in the old world. Those are individual videos that I highly recommend you check out to see what specific choices I make in terms of battle and also campaign movement. I'll leave those links in the pinned comment below too. Now, to structure this video, I'll first be talking about his start position, how it's different from his Immortal Empires counterpart, and then going into specific details on the first early game turns, what you should do from there, and also how you will eventually capture Karak Eight, and also taking out one of your early game enemies before they can actually gain momentum. Now, a brief general overview of who Belegar is for those who are not familiar with him is he is one of the dwarf legendary lords, and he's one of the lords specifically in the race to capture Karak Eight Peaks, the other two being Skarsnik for the greenskins, aka orcs and goblins, and also Queek Headtaker for the ratmen Skaven. Now, at the very start of your old world campaign, you already are much closer to the Karak Eight Peaks bowl here. In the Immortal Empires campaign map, you do start off more closer to the southern realms, closer to Talea and also Skaven Blight. So much farther start position in Immortal Empires, and it's a little bit more punishing and a bit more of a journey too. But in order to get to the meat of the action, aka the Karak Eight Peaks Bowl and three-way battle between Skaven, Greenskins, and also Dwarves too, you do start off in this area here. Belegar specifically starts around this point here by this quest marker. You do start off at war with an ogre tribe called the the Rock Skulls. And then you'll be fighting off an initial enemy army here, but then you also have enough movement to not only defeat them, but also capture Valea's Sorrow. Now, that's going to essentially be your first turn, but during that as well, I highly recommend that you go to your starting settlement of Grim Peak, recruit a lord, primarily a runesmith, and also some units of quarrelers. You do start off with a military building here. Now, it says that it's not under my control now. We'll get to that point later, but essentially I sold my starting settlement of Grimpeak to a dwarven ally of Karak Azul much later down the track too, once I've actually captured Karak Eight Peaks, aka Karagloon. It doesn't necessarily specifically say that this is Karak Eight Peaks, but Karagloon, Karak Eight Peaks, same difference. But essentially, you'll want to fight off the initial army of ogres, capture Valea's Sorrow, recruit several units of quarrelers, and also, after capturing Valea's Sorrow, you should get a confederation offer between some of the dwarven tribes, or one of the dwarven tribes up in this region. I don't remember specifically which one, but you will gain a confederation option. Definitely take it, but also disband your newly confederated army in this region here to start, and also just to get things started right off the bat too. Even though early game confederation with a dwarven clan is tempting and also provides you territory and another army, you gotta disband that army and sell your territory to some other friendly regions, whether it be the humans in the Empire or to different dwarf clans around the area too. Heck, even yes, it was actually Karak Hearn, which is one of the early game dwarven clans that has the option to offer you a confederation after you capture Valea's Sorrow. I sold Karak Hearn to one of the Tomb King factions in Chaos Robbie's mod. Now, the other mod that I'm using is Trade Settlements. You can argue that it can be a little cheaty, but at the same time, it's in my personal headcanon that you should be able to offer settlements to any faction as long as they're not at war with you, particularly friendly factions or neutral factions, so that you're not entirely limited by the fact that only factions that you border you can sell to. This provides a lot of options and also a potential strategy, and even could be good for roleplay too, as in saying to some factions like, hey, enemy of my enemy is my friend, or I'm using you as essentially a buffer zone to ward off any expansion from other potential enemies. But that's essentially what I did in turns 1 and 2, confederating with Karak Hearn, but immediately disbanding our newly confederated army from them and selling off their former territory to other dwarf clans or allies in the area too, or even to neutral parties as well. Now, the whole point of doing so, with disbanding the army in particular, is to reduce the amount of predicted income. Yes, I know it is negative, but we offset the negative income by a massive influx of gold that we receive from selling off our settlements. And how I specifically did it was using the Trade Settlements mod. And yeah, like I said, it's a cheat, but at the same time, it's within my headcanon that you should be able to sell off territory to allies or neutral parties. But once you've gotten that out of the way, also side note, there's no really need for you to have this territory up in the north. Your whole point is to control Karak Eight Peaks, which will reduce the upkeep penalty to Belegar's entire faction. But this is just going to give you a divided empire or splintered empire problem. So sell off the territory, gain some money from it, and then use that money to fuel and fund your army down in the south, which you will be slowly moving towards the goal of Karak Eight Peaks. So once you've captured Valea's Sorrow, jump into the underway stance and force your way over to this settlement here, Karak Ziflin, but all the while keeping your second lord at Grim Peak, recruiting more quarrelers, ideally from the recruitment pool, but also using global recruitment to hire more as well. The global recruitment, that's going to be taking up a lot of your treasury too. So definitely get a massive influx of money, or as much money as you can, and using global recruitment in order to gain an influx of troops, which you will need to send over to Belegar to help reinforce, not necessarily taking Karak Ziflin from the ogres. That's the thing too, is these ogres, they're kind of like a sideshow, and it's okay to ignore them too. They're essentially a neutered ogre faction and really have been recruiting Noblars, a couple of ogre units as well, but your main threat here is Skarsnik. And yes, in my second episode, I actually made a daring blitz against Skarsnik too. Essentially, once you've captured Karak Ziflin, do not stuff around and try to finish off the ogres. Jump into the underway stance and make an assault on Karak Grill here. You're going to want to send Belegar's army, and also, if you time things right, you'll have your second army and lord right behind him, just with under each army, just with under 20 units. The second army primarily being quarrelers. If you can, transfer some, if not most of the quarrelers over to Belegar's army, and then make your siege on Caragril while being reinforced by your second lord here. Now, I also have in my second video a replay of fighting against Skarsnik and his forces. Once you've taken out Skarsnik, go into the Great Book of Grudges, and yes, I did complete my grudge there of fighting against Skarsnik and the Crooked Moon Mutinous Gits. You'll have a grudge here that says defeat them 5 times, and essentially that's the thing too, is like you'll catch them with their pants down, and you can use Caragril as your sack city for both Belegar and your second lord to just farm experience, and also secondly get your Book of Grudges, get this particular grudge out of the way, and get your rewards fulfilled too. Now, another important thing about Belegar, before I forget, is he has the Oath Gold mechanic. Essentially, it's really easy to earn Oath Gold. You earn it through winning battles, sieges, and essentially just being active on the campaign and the battlefield maps too. But you'll be using your Oath Gold in the Forge here to gain different types of weapons and equipment to give to your heroes, and essentially make them stronger in combat. Now, even though I said you can use Caragril and also Crooked Moon as your punching bags, I will say don't stuff around with them too much, as you are essentially on the doorstep of taking Caragloon. That was just my bad there on the last episode too, that I did not know Caragloon was basically Karak 8 Peaks, but you're going to want to rush immediately there. Around this time too, it's going to be occupied by a Minor Skaven clan. I was pretty lucky that it was a Minor Skaven clan and not Queek Headtaker's faction Clan Moors, which you're also going to want to fight against as well. It's inevitable. Queek is going for Karak 8 Peaks too, but with Belegar's army, you should be able, fingers crossed, to hold him off. And this is a pretty solid and balanced army that you have here. Its main strength though, as Belegar, it's not just himself. He is a very strong legendary lord, but it is his heroes here as well. Now, his 4 heroes are King Lun, his ancestor, essentially a good frontline fighter that I usually pair with him in battle, and I send both of them in to duel commanders and other legendary lords. Both of them can definitely take on Queek himself. I can have Stonebeard. I also have as a frontlines fighter, and essentially what I love using Hack and Half and King Lun for are just stuffing up the enemy or stopping them in their tracks before getting to our backlines of Coilers, which will be doing the majority of the damage there. But also, speaking of specific damage output, I also love Throny Ironbrow. If we click on him and check out his character details there, his particular skills and rune spells are really useful, especially Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Basically, this is essentially a massive explosion, a huge amount of potential AoE damage on the enemy army. What I usually do is I'll take Throny, use him as a frontline spellcaster, and also using King Lun or also Hack and Half to get enemies to surround them, stuff them up as much as possible, and then unleash hell with Wrath and Ruin. Now, as for the other useful hero here, Draymar Hammerfist, I basically use him as a support unit for our Coilers and also Rangers there. Usually I like putting a lot of points in ammunition, basically just trying to make it so that our units don't run out of ammo too early in battle. Triangulation is also useful, but I usually save that for the later game. But this line is underrated in my opinion. Increased mobility, being able to move farther on the campaign map, even if it's just marching closer to your enemy or to your enemy's capital. That is huge. Like, I know Legend of Total War has mentioned it a lot on his channel, that increased campaign movement range means a lot for any army out there. But essentially, this is to make sure that you can either escape an enemy army or you can track them down and they won't get away from you. Now, once you've taken out that minor Skaven clan, you essentially have Karak Eight Peaks and Karagrill under your control, but you're also dead center in the heart of the Karak Eight Peaks Bowl. You have Queek Headtaker barreling towards you, but also a silver lining that you should be proud of yourself for is taking out Skarsnik. That's one piece. That's one of the chess pieces off the board there, and you can focus your attention on turtling and eventually taking out Queek himself. I wouldn't recommend either using ambush or intercepting him in the underway stance, whichever one that you feel most comfortable with. But also beware too that you have other potential enemies, such as this minor Khorne faction here. You still have the Ogre faction that you have to deal with, although like I said, they are a neutered faction too. And yes, I was getting a little bit on the ballsy side and declared war against some greenskins that were also at war with our dwarven allies. Speaking of dwarven allies, we do gain plus relations with them as Belegar, as we also not necessarily expand but increase trade with them, and also when we quote-unquote confederate, only to eventually sell their territory after confederating them. We also gain sight over some of the Empire factions. Wissenland is another modded faction, which I may potentially play in an Immortal Empires campaign as well, but that's definitely a story for another time. Southern Realms are also included in this mod too, and all of these can make for potential allies or also specifically for people that you can sell territory to or use as buffer zones like I mentioned before. Now, as for Belegar's overall campaign, this is definitely something I wouldn't recommend to a beginner. It'll be really very much so on the challenging side. I would recommend this to a semi-experienced player or medium experienced player, but also expert players or veteran players, all of you would definitely know what to do, and also would have a lot of fun with this faction too. There is a lot of potential, and just overall a very solid and good balanced faction in terms of army composition. But also the main stars, it's not just Thoric or Belegar himself, it's his ancestor heroes that really provide buffs and also can take on armies of their own too. I've actually had battles in previous episodes of Hack and Half or King Lun holding off massive amounts of hordes, while Draymar, Hammerfist, and the Quarrelers and Rangers were raining fire down on them. That has been my overview of Belegar's early game campaign in the Old World mod, but also I'd love to hear your personal strategies or your opinions on Belegar's campaign. What would you do differently from me? And also, I'm open to constructive criticism on things that I could do better in terms of showcasing good narrative-driven campaigns, or in general, even my commentary too. Just let me know in the comments below what you would like to see more of, or what you would have done differently in terms of strategies. Also, I do plan on releasing more episodes too. I do have a special episode plan where I showcase the battle for Karak 8 Peaks, and the follow-up episode after that, which will be showcasing our defense of Karak 8 Peaks against Queek, the ogres, a possible greenskin tribe, and yes, maybe even Khorne themselves. It's going to be, this already feels like not just a three-way battle, but like an all-in-one or an absolute brawl that is about to happen. But genuinely, do let me know your thoughts, opinions in the comments below. If you would be interested in playing this faction, and also what factions would you want to see me play in my narrative story campaigns for either the Old World or also for Immortal Empires Expanded. And also, side note too, I also am known for my Baldurs Gate 3 character build content as well. So if you want to see more of that, or also just talk more shop about D&D, Warhammer lore, and even a little bit of Elder Scrolls, which we will definitely do in the future, I'd love to have you join us on those adventures, friends. Remember to hit those like, subscribe, and bell icon notifications, friends, and I'll save you a seat at the table for those adventures.